The commission is now called to order. If everyone will please rise with the commission and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, if you will please read the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Here.
Commissioner Frazier?
Here.
Commissioner Hale?
Here.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Here.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Here. That brings us down to the approval of the agenda. Commissioners, if I may have Commissioner Frazier.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Commissioner Frazier, further?
No comments.
Any other commissioner? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed by no? Hearing none, passes 7-0. I do have one announcement, and that's the current city vacancies. Board of Zoning Appeals, 2 openings. Board of Review, 3. Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, 1. Harbor Advisory, 1. Investment Advisory, 2. Local Development Finance Authority, 2. Local Officers Compensation Commission, 2. Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Advisory Board, 1. Marquette County Transit Authority, 1. Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee, 2. Planning Commission, 1. And Police Fire Pension Board, 1 opening. I encourage everybody, as I'm sure the entire commission does, to really consider stepping up and taking one of those positions, applying for it. All of the relevant paperwork is on the city website and can be certainly submitted electronically. And it's a good way to really learn city government, learn how the city works, and to help your city move forward. So please consider that. Boards and committees, we have one new member we'd like to welcome, and that would be Matt Luce to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Matt, if you would please meet me at the podium. It's always a pleasure, Matt, to meet you again, but also to greet a new member of a city committee, especially after I just went through a drill of the help that we need. So Matt, we look for good things from you from Parks and Rec, and this is a pin. Thank you. That really signifies that you're a member of the team that helped run the city. So please wear it in good health, and right now the city clerk will take care of the action of swearing you in. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Just raise your right hand, please.
I, Matt Luce, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Marquette, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board of the City of Marquette according to the best of my ability.
Item number 2, we have an appointment to make, and that would be Jill Mallon, Board of Zoning Appeals, appointment from alternate term to unexpired full term, ending on 2-1521. Commissioners, your pleasure. Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we appoint Jill Malin to the Board of Zoning Appeals for appointment from alternate term to unexpired term ending February 15th, 2021.
Commissioner Campana.
I would second that.
Mayor Pro Tem, further comments?
No.
Mr. Campana?
Just glad that she's stepping up.
Any other commissioner? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. That brings us to the first session of public comments. Comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when making public comments.
Thank you. James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition, 538 Yelmer Road, Scandian, Michigan. And I would like to reserve time to address item number 5, Ordinance 682. And also, my comment here is that it appears that Mike Angeli, the city manager, has been quoted in a paper saying that ordinances first reading are generally on the consent agenda. No comments, no discussion, no nothing, no reading. I believe that the rules of procedure and the bylaws of this board require that the first reading that the chair shall read or have read onto the record the ordinance. And a simple point of order by any member here that does not really understand the true extent of the rule, please request a point of order so we can double check the mayor's understanding of how he doesn't have to do that. And it seems a bit disingenuous. The first reading and then you don't read it. And it's just on a consent agenda all the time. And as this, starting the Suicide Prevention Coalition myself, this in itself, the way that you folks just tend to, have discussion and debates without motions, you just tend to be loose, fast and loose with the rules and whether or not you gotta follow them or not. This is creating an increased hopelessness in the community that people just don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance to be people that don't follow the rules. And people are cheating. It's cheating. Not following the rules, cheating. Sorry, but it is. And so that is increasing the risk of suicidal behavior in our community, is the hopelessness that people have. And I would hope that you would at least consider requesting a point of order for the rules that you really truly don't understand the extent of. You get a point of order. And a point of order would then, unless of course the mayor has a different idea, in the written rule it says, the point of order then the mayor, or the presiding officer, shall read or have written, or shall read or have read onto the record, published in the minutes, the written rule as it exists today. And that rule shall not be deviated from until there's another written rule to replace it. So this running fast and loose, and maybe we do this, maybe we don't have to do this, you just follow the, and what I call them is the bully with a gavel. It seems that what it comes really down to in the city of Marquette here is Ron Keefe. That Ron Keefe appears not to have effectively instructed his client as to your legal duties and responsibilities on his board. The guy just took the oath of office, said you have to follow the charter. Well, the rules are part of it. So if you're not following the rules, you're not following the charter, and that's a violation of your oath of office. So please consider tightening up these rules, a few points of order, and that would clarify it, get it on the record. And then everybody will be clear. And maybe you could get the orientation for parliamentary procedure that Ron Keefe does, and just do it here in front of God and everybody, so we all can understand what you're teaching people
Your
how
time
to
is up,
run these
Mr.
boards and
Gallen.
committees.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Well, yeah, please just step up to the podium in the order that you like.
Iris Caters, 15 Specker Circle, Marquette. I'd like to talk to Ordinance 682. I'm speaking on behalf of the County Cares Consortium of healthcare providers, law enforcement, educators, and other community leaders. As history has demonstrated with alcohol and tobacco, the approval and acceptance of substance abuse among adults is always trickled down to impact our youth. The selling and use of recreational marijuana among adults in our community sends the message to youth that this is totally okay and acceptable. There is one major difference. A child's brain, including middle school and high school, is still developing and highly susceptible to chemical changes that occur in the body when substances like THC are introduced. It can affect decision-making, concentration, and memory for days after use, especially in people who use marijuana regularly. Some impacts are reduced school performance. Students who smoke marijuana tend to get lower grades and are more likely to drop out of high school than their peers who do not use. The effects of marijuana on attention, memory, and learning can also last for days or weeks. Reduced life satisfaction. Research suggests that people who use marijuana regularly for a long period of time are less satisfied with their lives and have more problems with friends and family. Impaired driving. Marijuana affects the number of skills required for safe driving: alertness, concentration, coordination, and reaction time, judging distance, and reaction to signals. So, it is not safe to drive high or ride with someone using marijuana. High school students, seniors especially, who smoke marijuana are 2 times more likely to receive a traffic ticket and 65% more likely to get into an accident than other teens, and cannot pass sobriety tests even 90 minutes after marijuana. People who begin using marijuana before age 18 are 4 to 7 times more likely to develop dependency than in adults. Adolescents who use marijuana regularly are significantly less likely than their non-smoking peers to finish high school or to obtain a degree. Marijuana potency, measured by percentage of THC, found in confiscated samples has risen from an average of 3.8% in the 90s to over 50 and 80% now. A new study on the impact of marijuana legislation in Colorado indicates that for every dollar of revenue coming from marijuana, the state spends $4.50 as a result of the effective consequences of legalization. Here is the question and the end of this little talk. We in Marquette have enough foresight, I hope, and bold information that we can carry on an information campaign to teach our children about THC more than we have now. Will
Ms.
you
Caters, I
support?
must stop you
Thank you.
at this point.
Marquette County cares.
Thank you.
Good evening. Nice to see the sun come out today, isn't it, after that torrential rain? My name is Carolyn Crowley, 436 West Hewitt Avenue. I would like to speak on the issues regarding development, Cliff Dow, and marijuana. In 1958, my grandmother, Catherine Crowley, received the key to the city of Marquette due to her efforts to preserve the culture of our Queen City. She did not receive this key due to wealth or popularity. Rather, Grandma Crowley received this recognition because she believed in the culture, art, preservation, and the welfare of citizens at large. I attended the presentation of The History of Cliff Dow by Margaret Brum. What a wealth of knowledge. I wish some of you guys were there. I know someone had commitments. But I know the history of Cliff Dow since my father worked there for 25 years to provide for our family of 10. And I'll tell you what, his lunchbox smelled like Cliff Dow even after he died. I am gravely concerned about our public health due to the toxic levels in this piece of property. That is far-reaching. Our city representatives are accountable for the selling and development of this land. I hope the city has studied the research of the effects of wood tar and its byproducts. I hope the city governments are looking at how the rapid land developments are and are not respecting the rich culture of Marquette, public health, and hard-working citizens and residents that may live from paycheck to survive. Yes, we need revenue. We need revenue to secure the welfare of our city. There are many interventive ways to do this. Our city has made decisions that have allowed for great changes and fair progress. Another change, the current discussion of marijuana and how it fits into our city framework, is another change. Please consider how Negate Township is handling the subject of selling of marijuana. They have a concise plan. The final question is this: will the city of Marquette preserve the culture, public health, and welfare of the common folks when planning for revenue and the future of our Queen City? I surely hope so. Please be careful, please be insightful, and you do a great job of working. Presque Isle has done great things to preserve our island. Guys, slow down, try to be careful, okay? That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. And first of all, let me state that I'm not going to give my presentation to you in the next 2 minutes and 50 seconds. What I am going to do is put on the record that I'm opposed to the rezoning of the Cliff Dow parcel. I understand there will be a public hearing on it 2 weeks from tomorrow. I've been called out of town on an international business trip and will be unable to attend, so I feel I must put this on the record right now. I was busy with my presentation, so I didn't get a chance to read the notes from the Planning Commission till last night. And one of the reasons the Planning Commission agreed to the change of zoning recommendation was a very powerful statement from a representative of the city, and I'm going by the notes from the Planning Commission. I wasn't at that meeting, so this is the written record. And I've circled it because I have a hard time reading. The representative of the city stated on the record, He stated what he wants to try and generalize is that the contamination that is in the site over the past 10 years, after they have removed a lot of the source material, is going down significantly. That is a very powerful declarative sentence from a representative of the city. By the way, the color of these papers means nothing. It just means whatever I had in the printer, so don't take any effect on that. To get ready for my speech, I did an FOIA with the state of Michigan and had access to their documents. This is from an email from Steve Harrington to a whole bunch of people, including people in the city of Marquette, dated a year ago, 2018. I just received the DEQ environmental laboratory results for the groundwater sample, blah, blah, blah. The reported concentrations of ethylbenzene, xylenes, and 2,4-dimethylphenol are unfortunately still at or near record highs, with a concentration of 3 and 4-methylphenol more than doubling since last November sampling. I wanted to share this information as soon as possible. The history of the Cliffdow site has been fluctuating levels of different levels of contaminants. It is not accurate to state that the overall level of concentration of contaminants is going down. It takes the comfort level up very high, but it doesn't allow for the fact that some of these concentrations are spiking. And they're spiking at different sampling points, and they're spiking at different times of the year. And I only brought in one email. I had about a dozen of these, and in one of them, for no particular reason, a very nasty contaminant went up 5-fold at one well. I am opposed to the rezoning of this property because I don't think any development at that site can be done safely. And I'm also going to go on record. From now on, when anybody holds up this picture of the proposed development at Cliffsdow, I'm going to refer to it as Wood Tar Estates, because I don't dislike anyone that I know enough to recommend that they live on the former Cliffsdow property. Thank you for your time.
My name is Randy Irby, 605 Brookfield. I'm here to discuss the recreational marijuana, but more than that, I'd like to let you know that our team is here if there's any questions or answers we can answer for any of the public or your council. Thank you for your time today. I do want to touch base on what the First Lady mentioned about marijuana. Now, I'm a father of 6 and a grandfather is 17. I agree the children should not have any access. That's why the age is 21 years old, and I assure you that myself and my team are going to make sure if we come to town and you accept it, that nobody under 21 will have any access through our organization whatsoever. Now, ma'am, I hate to tell you this, but the day we live in now, they can get under the black market any kind of drugs they want. It's all about education, you know. This is I understand a topic that is hard for some people to understand, but the misinformation really needs to be looked into. The Colorado information and some of the things she said are just simply not true. But I want to reserve any time that is necessary for, again, myself or my team to answer any questions that the council or people may have. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Beth Cassidy, Executive Director for the Women's Center at 1310 South Front Street. About 3 weeks ago, one of my board members came and gave you, I think, a summation of our position on, I'm really talking about buffering requirements in relation to 682, retail marijuana. I'm not really sure. I've talked to your planners, I've talked to city commissioners, and I feel like it's appropriate for us to comment at this time. We would like to be considered as a buffer zone, and the reason why is because we serve at the Women's Center location very fragile individuals who've gone through a domestic violence or a sexual assault traumatic situation. A high percentage of our clients are substance abuse people. The reality is that when you go through a traumatic situation, talk to any psychiatrist or psychologist, you seek drugs, you seek alcohol to take away the pain. for us, we realize right next to us, there's a parcel for sale that would probably make a great retail establishment. I would be horrified to have that, or a liquor store right next to our building, because those throw off triggers to our population and might prevent someone from coming in to see us for any kind of services. So I'm not sure, I think this speaks to section 5.6 on buffering requirements. We're multi-zone in that area, but I really wish that the city commission would look at that for certain agencies that may not be a licensed substance abuse treatment center, but do serve some very, very sensitive people. So I appreciate you letting us comment on that.
Hi, Mark Roby, 468 Stone Quarry Drive. I'm a transplant. I've been here for 35 years. I fell in love with the area after coming up to K.I. Sawyer, and I stayed. I wasn't going to jump in on this 682, but I'm going to make a quick comment about that. Kids are going to find drugs, period. We all know it. We all went through our wild times when we were young. The kids in Marquette, they're going to find it if they want it because it's out there. As far as this lady was concerned, I understand her concerns, but as far as I'm concerned, being a military man and living a life of black and white and following orders, who's responsible? The parents. So, you want to catch a kid underage doing whatever? Fine. Don't throw the kid in jail. Don't throw him in juvie. Grab the parents by the neck and throw them in jail for a week and teach them a lesson to teach their kids to stay away from drugs. Because it's the parents' fault. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Lack of parenting. My problem is, I live in Meadows subdivision, right kitty corner from the lower Shires condominiums on Division Street. And I called the city engineer last year and found out the division is not rescheduled to be repaved until 2022. Now, there are 24 homes in my subdivision. The minimum amount of tax that anybody pays in that street is $3,500 a year. I pay $4,000 a year for my house because I have a bigger home. You got lower Shires, you got the Shires Hills people coming down. We're dodging that street constantly. You guys have been slapping pothole after pothole, and either I ride my Harley down the street and I'm playing dodge 'em, or I'm going down and I'm wrecking my shocks and my struts in my vehicle. Most people that Shires now I watch, instead of coming down Division going towards Cowles, no, they turn right and they go up around Pioneer just to avoid making a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn. People, I see too much stuff in here. Play, play, play. Let's fix this. Let's fix this. Let's fix so everybody can play. Stop playing. Put our taxpayers' dollars into fixing our infrastructure. Because I'm not waiting until 2022 to have that street fixed. I have no plans on leaving just yet, so I'm going to start a petition with my street, and I'm going to go through the condominiums, and I'm going to go through Shires Hills, and by the time I get done, I'll be here at the next city meeting with thousands of signatures, and you people better jump into it. Thank you.
Vivian Lassich, 508 Pine Street, Marquette. I would like also to be able to reserve time at a future time that the issue of 682 is being dealt with. I'll keep my comments extraordinarily brief. I'm a retired educator of 31 years. Actually, I taught the whole spectrum of children because I did an immense amount of subbing. I was certified in secondary and then ended up teaching 7th and 8th graders for a very, very long period of time. You want to hold parents accountable for what it is their kids get into. It's not the easiest thing to do. And anyone that's been in the same position I have been in or something which is similar professionally knows exactly what I'm talking about. And what is it we're modeling? I would ask, and I'm hoping that this is not your only source of information. I'm not a personal friend of Iris Cater's, but I'm a professional person aware of how much she has given of her life and her intelligence to this community. And so I would ask of her, would you please provide them with the materials that you have? And if there is anyone else here who has such materials, what are we doing? Will we sell our souls? Is this nation not now an example of so much of that has been selling the future? Obviously, many of you do not agree, but some do, and to those I am very grateful. I'd like to make one other comment, if I may. I'm a transplant of only 61 years. There are people who still don't think of me as having married a good Marquette man, came here, and so it's 61 years I've lived here. I'm well aware of the contamination at Cliffsdale. When I've read the articles in the paper, I've just shaken my head, as I've shaken my head about the marijuana decisions. Yes, there are dollars to be made. Are dollars all that we care about? Thank you for your consideration.
Matt Lutenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave, here in the city of Marquette. I'd like to reserve time for number 5, please. But I'm not here to speak about that. I'm here to kind of try to give a positive note. Before I go into that, though, I'd like to reinforce what this gentleman has said. And there's a lot of roads in town that need what's called SIMP. Apparently, you put a lot of money into that type of project for the budget. Please reconsider using some of it for the roads he speaks of, and this one that comes up. So in front of the hospital, I've spoken to a few of you before about the hospital redesign and reuse. I just want to point out that in about 2 weeks, I'm going to give a speech in California to a thing called the Mars Society. They accepted my brief here, which I'm going to try to read off pretty quickly. It's called Mars Market, or Marquette. Location, Marquette, Michigan, USA. Purpose, Technology and Procurement Center for Mars Society projects and programs. A location that can act as a central resource for Mars Society members and other enthusiasts to try out and potentially start a career in interplanetary science. A store to buy or sell merchandise, a manufacturing center for individual projects, and an educational service to provide classroom materials and projects for all levels of educators. Method, currently a former hospital in Marquette, Michigan, pronounced Marquette, or is available for repurposing. Currently, a former hospital in Marquette, Michigan is available for repurposing. With the existing space and proximity to a possible spaceport at the regional airport, this location offers an excellent place to provide technical programs and manufacturing facilities for projects involving the Mars Society. A place where the programs discussed in each of these conventions can be localized. By the way, they've had 25 now, or 23, sorry. Place where these programs discussed in each of these conventions can be localized and perfected by enthusiasts, students, and manufacturing professionals. A robust place with a science center devoted to Mars, an auditorium for TEDx speeches, and a drone manufacturing and testing facility. Complete with a helipad, our model rockets and observational aircraft can be launched on-site to give visitors something to observe and participate in. With winter temps around 5 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, the climate would allow for extreme weather testing and isolation. A partnership with Northern Michigan University would offer extended benefits for science and humanity courses. In closing, I would like to create a market center for the Mars Society, promoting the projects that members are involved in, as well as classrooms for enthusiasts to enjoy. Any project that is Mars Society related will be welcomed and produced. In 10 seconds, I hope you guys support that mission. Thanks.
Frank Jeff Verito to speak on item 5, 350 East Ridge Street, Marquette. These are my opinions. We thank Mr. Schlegel for mentioning the danger at roundabouts. I love them all except the one he referred to north of campus. It's designed similarly to the others, but something doesn't work. Traffic backups occur there. It seems dangerous even to experienced roundabout users. More typically, this board acts incognizant of public safety, even when reminded. The east-west crosswalks at Ridge and Front still remain unstriped. The manager told us we now own the equipment, so there's no longer an excuse. 13 months since notification, and the manager still hasn't gotten on the stick. Your futures ride on no one suffering an injury there in a situation that crosswalks may have prevented. Other examples include the east walkway outside City Hall and the north sidewalk on the main block of Washington Street. It's amazing that elderly people aren't breaking their ankles or worse. Broken hips can kill our seniors. Anyone who's not looking down is in danger. Where is the DDA spending all their parking revenue from the meters that make our city appear uninviting to visitors? Why not address them, this board may ask? 3 reasons. This board is accountable for all that occurs across our city limits. Any prudent board member or manager will notify them, and these meetings are televised. People will hear this comment permanently edged on record. Lawsuits will fly if someone is injured on account of such publicized, visible, and blatant negligence. This comment will be copied for the litigants. They'll know this board received fair warning. September 9th, this board voted on an unforeseen amendment to the marijuana ordinance to not limit the number of establishments. We have another example that isn't the most consequential, other than that the public had no chance to partake. Neither the map, the chart, nor even a cover sheet were provided. Our attorney needed to speak up when the motion came to a vote. Oddly, this was the night that mere minutes earlier, this board had approved a document for the Michigan Development Department. The members knew full well, based on unrefuted public testimony, that the deceptive wording credited this board for handling public participation in ways that this board has absolutely, positively been documented as having not. Our members went on to approve a documented lie just because it read nicely. I submitted my comment to the Economic Development Department, noting that hundreds of pages could be provided that would refute those assertions. Amazing how on the same night of that very item, this board again lost sight of the public process. The supplement also mentioned proactive public education. Proactive is one of the dirty words surrounding this commission. In some ways, this board is proactive, for example, certain street repairs. On too many land use and public participation matters, though, this board ignores proactive advice. The safety concerns mentioned earlier in this comment are the latest clear examples of our need to govern proactively.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. That brings us to a presentation by the Local Officers Compensation Commission by Vice Chair Jim Madison.
We're on our way. My name is Jim Madison, and excuse me. And I live at 703 Hennepin Road in South Marquette. And my wife and I have lived here in this community since 1983. I've enjoyed all of the years that I've lived here. I've been on this local officers compensation commission for 6 years so far. And Wendy, I may have to get back to you here. Oh, here we go. Yeah. These, by way of background, these are the current members of the Local Officers Compensation Commission. And I think I can safely say I'm the oldest member. And currently the vice chairman. We have Suzanne Bowers, I think Tony is probably the youngest, and then me. Susan Tullison. We have a vacancy for the next go-around. John Brahms just came on, and we have a second vacancy coming up for the term that ends at 8/01/26. And I'm really pleased to have Wendy Larson as our staff liaison. We couldn't do this without her. This is the purpose and goals established pursuant to state law, the Home Rule City Act, Act 279 of 1909, Section 117, 5C, along with Chapter 173 of the City Code, established by the City Commission July 11th, 1977. 7 members serve 7-year terms. Are you hearing me all right? Yes. Expiring August 1st for the purpose of determining the salaries of elected city officials. And that would include the City Commission, the Mayor, the Marquette Board of Light and Power, and the Marquette Board of Light and Power Board Chairman. Our accomplishments for the past year, prior to the Local Officers Compensation Commission meeting, the group staff liaison polled considerable communities and presented the local officers with a spreadsheet outlining the salaries of municipalities' elected leaders. And again, Wendy Larson was very helpful in this regard. The Marquette Board of Light and Power staff obtained comparable compensations from other municipally owned electric officials in Michigan. This was also shared with the Local Officers Compensation Commission. The group met on August 15th, 2019, and conducted all business necessary. By unanimous votes, the group decided the following: for elected officials' salary, City Commission, Mayor, the Marquette Board of Light and Power, and the Marquette Board of Light and Power Chairman. City Commissioners' compensation was increased by $200, with an annual salary of $7,900. Mayor's compensation was increased by $300, with an annual salary of $11,000. The Marquette Board of Light and Power remained at an annual salary of $4,000, and the Marquette Board of Light and Power Chair remained at an annual salary of $4,500. Did I miss one? I guess I didn't. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? There are no questions.
Good.
Thank you.
Because I'm between meetings.
Yeah, I have a question.
I just came out of a meeting at the
Commissioner.
library, Peter White Public Library, and I'm on my way to a rehearsal at Northern Michigan University that starts at 7 o'clock. I wish I could hang around for the rest of your meeting, folks, but have a good one.
Now, hold on, Jim.
Oh, okay.
There was a question.
Mr. Madison, we thank you very much. We appreciate what you're doing here. How often do you, I might have missed that, how often do you meet in a year?
We meet once every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
I think that's where I slipped up. We meet once every 2 years.
Okay.
We met last month. We'll meet again in August, mid-August of 2021. It's a good committee to be on. We make people, many people happy, and we only have to do this once every 2 years.
Well, maybe you'll fill those vacancies.
Yeah, we have 2 vacancies, and that is one of our goals, is to get those other 2 filled, so we have a full complement of 7 people.
One last question. When you come up with salary suggestions, you look at other communities to see what they're paying their commissioners, their BLP type people?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Just as a comparison, right? Okay, good.
And I can tell you, after having lived in Lansing and East Lansing for a number of years, and in Waterford Township for 21 years, which is the middle township of Oakland County, and up here for, like I said, 36 years, I can appreciate what you people are doing. Your group and the Board of Light and Power are very hardworking people. And we appreciate all you do for this community. Thank you.
Jim, thank you very much on behalf of the City Commission. Please pass that on to the committee 2 years from now. Commissioners, that brings us down to the consent agenda. If I can have a motion to accept, Commissioner Frazier.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second? Commissioner Schlegel.
Second the motion.
Any comments, any commissioner?
My consent is okay.
All those commissioners in favor, please. Well, we need a roll call. I've got it written right here. Please, roll call, Mr. Clerk. Ms. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
And Mayor Stonehouse.
Yes. That brings us down to item number 5, which is to schedule a public hearing to consider adult use recreational marijuana ordinance, number 682. I would, again, just remind folks, the purpose of this action is simply to schedule the public hearing. It is not to make decisions at this time, just to schedule a public hearing. Or not to, if the commission decides not to schedule a public hearing, but that's it. We're not to the point of, at this point, changing documents or putting recommendations in. Those things occur post-public hearing. Those are actions that are more appropriately taken then. That said, Clerk, if you would please read the background.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. On February 25, 2019, the City Commission adopted Ordinance number 675, which prohibited all adult-use marijuana establishments in the city of Marquette. The ordinance provided that the City Commission must review the ordinance within 60 days of the promulgation of final rules by the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, but no later than February 4th, 2020, if Laura fails to enact rules. Legal and regulatory issues regarding the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, MRTMA, remain unsettled, making it difficult for municipalities and prospective operators of adult marijuana businesses to determine with certainty the current and future state of the law. Specifically, Attorney General Dana Nessel has created a work group to suggest possible changes to the MRTMA and the Marijuana Regulatory Agency of the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs has caused emergency rules that expire in early February 2020 and which create 4 additional license classifications. Given the challenges mentioned above, along with the need to have a local zoning or licensing program in place, the city is not prepared to allow adult-use marijuana establishments to begin operating when the state starts to accept licensing applications on November 1, 2019. At the direction of the City Commission, the City Attorney, along with relevant staff, have prepared the attached ordinance to allow adult-use marijuana establishments in the City of Marquette to become effective June 1, 2020, to allow adequate time for city staff to draft license applications, assess the application and review process, establish license fees, review enforcement policies, and amend the Land Development Code in order to provide a regulatory structure for adult-use marijuana facilities licensed under the MRTMA. Staff is recommending that public hearing to consider the new ordinance be scheduled for the October 15th, 2019 regular City Commission meeting. Fiscal effect none. Recommendation, schedule a public hearing for the October 15th, 2019 City Commission meeting to consider the new adult use marijuana ordinance number 682. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Mr. Keith, do you have any comments to make regarding?
I can start it off, Your Honor. Thank you very much. First of all, let me just back up. I think it was at the last meeting we had a very general and wide-ranging discussion about what a marijuana ordinance in Marquette City would look like. And one of the things that was really a focus of that meeting is how many different marijuana establishments we might want. And no vote was taken on any decision was made. There was a vote to give the city administration some guidance as to what the commission was thinking about the number of establishments to be allowed, and that was all that was done. As a result of that discussion last meeting, the city, I and other members of the city prepared this draft ordinance, which is attached to the agenda supplement. Everyone should have it. And this ordinance, draft ordinance, as the mayor said, isn't going to be changed tonight anyway. If any changes are going to be made to it, it'll be made at the next meeting after the public hearing is held. And this is our standard practice, of course, to attach the draft ordinance to when we set a public hearing, and that's what we're doing tonight. I did want to let the commission know that based on the discussion that we had at the last meeting, we did go back and we added some things to what our really rough draft was. And one of the things we added to the rough draft is we took out any limitations as to the number of businesses that each of the establishments could have in the city, that we could have in the city. We also added some additional buffering requirements. For example, we added child care centers, daycare centers, child care group homes, religious institutions, public-owned parks or playgrounds, substance abuse disorder programs, and another marijuana establishment. We had a 500 feet buffer between another marijuana establishment. This is what we put in the draft that is attached to the agenda supplement. We haven't made no decisions have been made because the commission will make those decisions following the public hearing next time. We also added, speaking of the buffering requirements, Dennis Stakowitz will talk about the charts that are in the chambers here in a minute as to what those things all mean. But we also added a couple of other little things. We added a police and fire inspection process to the ordinance, and we have a proposed effective date, and we recognize that that is only, like everything else, is only proposed. All those things could change following the public hearing, but any changes that are to be made will have to be made at the public hearing. We can't make those tonight. The only process tonight is to set, the only action, I should say, is to set a public hearing for October 15 meeting. With that, I guess I would ask Dennis if he could maybe explain what those buffering maps are all about.
I'd be glad to. Thanks, Ron. Can you hear me on this?
Can hear me now.
Okay. What we did is, using our geographical mapping system that we have for the city, we took we put buffers as applied by the ordinance in a couple different scenarios. This one right here is if everything that is shaded in what looks to be like an orangish brown color are parcels that we believe would be eligible to be used for a marijuana business. The yellow are the schools with a 500-foot buffer applied. Okay. The second map that we have has a little bit more color to it. This is as the ordinance is in its draft form right now. Okay, so we have applied a 500-foot buffer to schools in yellow. Designated parks, what it means by designated parks is that by resolution of the city commission, they have been officially designated as a city park. Childcare centers, and this map also includes child care homes, because we had some internal debate about that as well, but we soon discovered that the child care home, where you may have 1 to 6 kids in a house, is like the most common one in the city. Although when you apply those, they really don't affect the business areas except for one area. Religious institutions, by definition in the ordinance, are applied in a peach color. Substance abuse disorder programs are in red. Okay, so then you can see when these are all applied with a 500-foot buffer, then it only leaves certain other areas for those to be available for marijuana businesses. And then the last one is pretty much the same as this, except one addition. We took any city-owned recreational facility area, not necessarily designated as a public park, but things like the bike path, and other portions of, say, like South Beach, and then we applied a 500-foot buffer to those. But this is the one that we're going with now based upon our interpretation of the ordinance right here. So, are there any questions on the maps? If not, I'll retire back to...
Question, commissioners? Any diagrams or maps?
When I do, I'll ask them over there.
Say again?
I have a question.
Please.
Dennis, this is the second time we heard about the Women's Center. That's not included in this. There is no buffer zone around the Women's Center, correct? Yes, no?
Understand there is not one against for the Women's Center.
Okay, just so we know that, we might want to discuss that, but thank you.
Yeah. That did not fit under the definition of substance abuse disorder program. So that would require, again, that's probably a Ron and a Kyle issue, but you'd need a definition and declaration of it and so on and so forth.
Can we, if not that, maybe another one, can we just say, we want a buffer zone around this particular place because we don't think it should be close to a dispensary? Can we do that? That's spot zoning, you know?
Well, you're dealing with a police power ordinance here.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop that ball and punt back to the city attorney on that one. That's not one that I'd be able to answer off the top of my head here. I don't want to embellish anything.
There's very little, one of the reasons that we've been trying to wait a little bit on this is there's very little guidance from the state. We don't know much. We do know that it can be as much as 1,000 feet from a school, and that's about it. We've added some additional buffers. Whether they will withstand judicial challenge, we don't know. And as Dennis said, we went about as far as we thought we could safely go. Whether that'll be upheld, I don't know.
We did with the understanding that the 500 feet we're using here is 50% less than what's provided for in the act. If you went 1,000 feet, you wouldn't have anything available in the city. I think that's a fairly accurate statement.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill?
Could you say anything about why there's one category that's crosshatched, secure processor allowed zones, and then the brown is sort of everything else? Is that, it's the...
Yeah, the secure processor is a crosshatch on top of the brown areas.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's because the secure processor allowed zones, I believe, require industrial zoning for them.
And the others do not? That's
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Schlegel?
Thanks. I just want to make it clear as well, my understanding is that the state of Michigan is still not done with their final list of recommendations, so we could see further recommendations coming down that would
They're
change
supposed to
this.
have final recommendations, I think, in February, but
Correct.
whether they do or not, I think they can ask for an extension.
Right, okay. So I just want to make that clear. to everybody sitting out here, we're doing what we can for what we have at our ready right now. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stakowitz. You'll,
Can I
oh,
ask-
sorry, one more?
I know we've done this before, but what the planning commission is in charge of or will recommend versus in that next
So
step?
the-
Could you please just go through that one more time?
Planning Commission gets down to a little bit more technical aspect of land development in terms of things of such as number of parking spaces, where the parking lot is, drainage in the parking lot, landscaping, the things that you would normally see around a building. That's what the Planning Commission level is. Okay, this police power ordinance basically regulates all of the buffers. The Planning Commission, the zoning ordinance will regulate the actual location of where it can be, and then things such as signage, lighting, parking, so on and so forth. So it's more of a land development type of aspect on the regulation of it. Your police power ordinance covers the buffers, the inspection, the licensing, deferring to state law, inspection by police department, so on and so forth.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
I was gonna wait till after the public speaks, but since you're up there and everyone's asking questions, Dennis, I'm just gonna ask while you're there. Why? Why are we doing buffers? Why do we put buffers other than schools? Okay.
That was the general feedback from the last meeting. There was feedback from some commissioners that they wanted to look at additional buffers. We then formulated our response based on Grand Rapids and what they put together as suggested buffers. That's the only reason we did it.
Okay. This is not the time to discuss and argue the buffers, I suppose, but when I went back and looked, the only 3 of those things were something people brought up. Definitely not parks. So just to make clear that I'm not necessarily on board with the current buffer zone, but that's, again, later topic at our next meeting.
That's it. A number of, please.
Just one more comment related to these maps. So in front of you, you see a list of the designated parks. I just wanted to explain that the reason between the 2 maps, the designated parks and the non-designated, is that in case the commission does decide they want to create buffers within parks, they may want to extend that beyond just what's designated as a park. And the reason I say that is because, for example, things like Nemestow Park is not officially designated a park. There's other areas in the city that people might think are parks, but are not designated, and that we have been planning for some time to bring a list of suggested designated parks to the commission for approval, independent of all of this, independent of the marijuana discussion, because we wanted to certify or solidify that list. So just so you're aware that the reason for that 3rd map is not to confuse you, but just in case you want to extend that park option. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Caters, I think, or excuse me, Mr. Gallen, I think you asked to speak.
James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. And as has been stated here several times, and by Ms. Caters and several others here, is that the use of substances in general, alcohol and others, is, quickly transforms from recreational use to abuse. And a lot of times, these people even start to begin with, they say children to start smoking cigarettes is basically for the treatment self-medication for depression, because the child's got depression. There's mild psychoactive properties in cigarettes, so that's where they start with that. And the ones that gravitate towards that are the ones that are suffering some sort of childhood trauma or some sort of abuse or neglect of some sorts. And that's how all this stuff gets started a lot of times. And so I would ask you to at least consider if you're going to go and do this, and you're going to be involved in getting these substances to the people in the community, that you would earmark, what's that running? That you would earmark a substantial amount of the revenue generated to address the, I mean, maybe unintended on your part, but the obvious gonna be problems in the community that are gonna be generated because of this. And that if you could maybe earmark, say, 20% of the revenue to go for social programs and substance abuse treatment programs and education to the community and stuff like that, and for the children, that would go a long ways towards relieving people thinking that you're just looking for a bunch of money and you could just start spending on whatever you want to think about, something other than the unintended consequences. And of course, as I just noticed, this was listed as unfinished business on the agenda, but there's no motion pending. There's no motion, meeting pending question. You never did none of that. And you just had a bunch of debate. You were debating before, and then she's doing hers, and she's giving you a debate back and forth. All this without any motions pending, which is obviously a violation of the bylaws. This is a requirement. And I know this is people in a quick point of order, a simple point of order by any of you that don't really understand all of the parameters of the motion before there's any discussion or vote, is that the rule states that you shall have no debate before there's a motion that is properly seconded by a qualified member. And what they don't say is, and then they like to say, well, this isn't debate, it's discussion because there's no motion, so it's not debate. Well, the second part of the rule says that there's only limited discussion in order to frame a motion. So to go on with all the discussion and to just go negotiate a motion along the way like you folks have done for generations, it's inappropriate. And this community deserves better. By example, for the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Caters, did you request time?
Yes, please. Sure. Okay, Iris Caters, 15 Specker Circle, Marquette. I just wanted to finish up. The consortium, this Marquette County Consortium, Marquette County Cares, is ready to help create an educational program. We have medical people, we have mental health people, they're all on the board, we have educators. And one thing that we need to do is to educate the kids that worked with smoking. We can educate the adults. Adults do not know in general basically what they're dealing with as far as the changes in THC. I'm 73, and back in the 60s, I did not smoke marijuana. But it was nothing like what we're dealing with now, and we have to get that through people's head, that this is very different. So if you could set aside some money, as the honorable gentleman said, to bombard Marquette with information to youth and families. It worked with smoking, and it can work with THC, and I have everything that I said documented as of a week ago. This is current, and I can leave it with someone here if anybody wants to look up the documentation, but this is federal, university, and state information, and the $4.50 that I quoted is correct, that the amount of money that you take in from selling this will have much greater cost in tangible money and in societal cost and educational costs for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, who would get this documentation?
Ms. Crowley, any?
Are we allowed to come up there yet? Is this open?
It's not open. It's for people that had reserved time.
Okay, got it.
Ms. Crowley, are you here?
No, I'm
No.
here, but I
Oh, nothing more to say? Okay.
No, thank you.
Mr. Utley, any? Arby, I'm sorry. Can't read my own writing. Just as questions?
Unless there's any questions,
Okay, that would be Mrs. Lossich. Mrs. Lossich here?
She has left.
She's left, okay, thank you. Ms. Lutenberg?
Thank you. Matt Lutenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave here in the city of Marquette. I'd like to echo Ms. Reynolds' concern. Why are we having a buffer? I'll just point out the vape store that you guys have canceled. Its business operation could not be turned into one of these, according to map number 3. 500 feet's a long ways. And I just wanted to ask why 500 feet, why not 100 feet? 500 feet is more than a road width. So meaning I have to ask why the buffers as well. You can put a buffer of 100 feet, and yet alcohol can be sold directly across the street from the high school. Cigarettes and tobacco are sold directly across the street from nearly every school in this map. So why the buffer and why the concerns about marijuana and not about alcohol, not about cigarettes, and not about the other vices like pharmaceuticals? We all know drugs are bad. Drugs are terrible for kids. That's blah. But we all are adults. And I can honestly say there's probably not one single adult in here that's not taking a medication. So to say that we need to worry about the kids and drugs and all these education facilities or programs, it's morally acceptable. Yes, vital, go for it. But I don't see any kids at the bar. I don't see any kids walking in and buying cigarettes, or for that matter, asking me anymore to buy cigarettes. So I think our kids are a little bit smarter than we want to give them credit for. At the same time, these are all businesses, and I ask again, what are we doing to restrict the use of government power to restrict the type of businesses? You guys are in a prime example. Do we have to get this motion or this thing that you guys are doing, do we have to get it approved by the state of Michigan? And if so, how soon can we give them the draft ordinance and get this approved? Because why would you delay any applications coming your way? If you found out tomorrow that there are 30 applications waiting to be processed for the city of Marquette, would you wait until June 2020 to implement this? I would ask why, especially when everybody's asking for the money. And to be fair, the money is already delegated for the first 5 years, so it's not something you can choose what you can spend the money on. But it is being used for substance abuse. It is being used for PTSD, veteran concerns and processes. So nonetheless, my question is, do we need to wait for the state of Michigan to give us rules, or can we give the state of Michigan rules and a list of companies that want to be a part of our community? And the more you restrict it with a 500-foot buffer, the less business you'll get. And that's the key of this whole thing, is to bring businesses into town for adults.
Mr. Rowe, did you reserve time on 5?
I didn't ask for any more time, but I would like to make 2 more comments if I could. It's in regards to the same thing.
On 5?
Yeah. Oh, no, not on 5. This was
On the road? On Division Street?
Yeah.
No, we're off topic on that.
all done on that.
But you may during the second public comment period,
Okay.
which would be coming up
I have a
directly.
question for the chief of police too.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I believe, Mr. Verito, you had reserved time.
Frank Jeff Verito, these are my opinions. Item 5 reads, schedule a public hearing to consider adult use marijuana ordinance number 682. It's assumed this item ought to pertain to scheduling the public hearing only. However, this type of item is usually placed on the consent agenda unless there's more to it. Of concern is the premature vote on September 9th that appeared out of nowhere after no cover sheet or information from the marijuana work session were provided in the packet, despite numerous pleas in the past to provide such materials. A map of the exclusion zones and a chart on the number of recommended establishments magically appeared at the meeting. The manager's assistant told me later that those documents were not ready at the time of the agenda's publication. Still, those documents were needed in the September 9th packet. Salaried employees ought to have not left work on Thursday the 5th until the job was done. They're in tonight's packet, but almost too faint to read. What's pertinent tonight is the potential of this board to introduce another unforeseen aspect of the marijuana ordinance now and inadvertently vote again ahead of any public opportunity. The skepticism is justified because last time this board fully realized no information was furnished to the public. Even though this was mentioned prior to the discussion, this board went right ahead and motioned to allow no limit on the number of establishments. The attorney said a motion could be made, but nothing about whether entertaining a vote was appropriate. No public opportunity was provided to comment on the map, the chart, or what needed to have been a summary of the work session. We were due a chance to review those documents and comment tonight, especially being that this related item appeared on tonight's agenda anyway. Our attorney needed to speak up. As outspoken as I am about expediting this process, would delaying the vote tonight have impeded any aspect of our timeline? Almost certainly not. June of 2020 seems too long off, even considering all the steps needed to complete the listed provisions. September 9th, Mr. Stonehouse claimed, quote, how far the city has come on marijuana and that every step was transparent. Although approving no limit on the establishment wasn't a huge deal so long as there are enough, another public opportunity was denied us by voting on an unforeseen aspect. How transparent was that, and what's keeping a similar oversight from occurring again tonight? And I had no eye contact with Mr. Stonehouse during that entire comment, and he's the person who is supposed to be legally mandated to run these meetings properly.
Looking at it. Commissioners, what is your pleasure? I'm sorry, Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we schedule a public hearing for October 15th, 2019 to consider the new adult use marijuana ordinance number 682.
Is there a second? Commissioner
Second.
Hill? Commissioner, or Mayor Pro Tem, any further discussion?
No, I think it's made clear that this is just scheduling the hearing, so the next meeting as listed, that's when we will be discussing if we'd like to go forward with the current ordinance and the current maps and et cetera. So I think that that's been made clear, so nothing else.
Appropriate time. Commissioner Hill.
And I'd also like to point out that the marijuana information has been put on a separate place on the website. So you can go, if you go to marquettemi.gov and you scroll down, there's a separate section just about marijuana. It lays out all the meeting dates, it lays out the current draft ordinance, and it lays out the maps. So if you have internet access, you can get that on your phone or get it at home. You can go to the library. It is available just as its own separate section.
Any other commissioner? Okay, let me just point out that there is a strong educational requirement as part of the program, as I recall. And we'll have to talk through that, how that best works. I would also remind folks that residents in the city of Marquette voted 62% in favor of recreational adult use marijuana. And whether we are pro or con on it, that speaks powerfully. That's called democracy, as did the citizens in Michigan. So this is not something that the city of Marquette is developing on its own. This is reflective of what the voters voted on. My comment aside, we ready for a vote? All those commissioners in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. That brings us down to item number 6, which is a request to purchase city-owned property, parcel of a portion of parcel 0240010. Clerk, if you would read the background, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bergen. In August of 2018, the city received a request from Carl Newmanen to purchase a portion of parcel number 0240010. Mr. Newmanen purchased the adjacent depot building property at 200 South 5th Street from a private owner and later discovered a property description error. Mr. Newmanen intended to purchase the southern strip of the property, 25 feet by 175 feet, from the city as shown in the attached map to correct the error. In April of 2019, the city and Mr. Newmanen executed a purchase agreement which required closing of the property within 60 days. The purchase agreement expired per these terms, and the city received another offer to purchase this property from Wealth Strategy Group, LLC, as outlined in the attached letter. The City Commission adopted a resolution of intent to sell the property to Wealth Strategy Group LLC on August 26, 2019, which directed the city manager to negotiate a sale of the property and bring the sale terms to the City Commission for final approval. Since that time, the attached purchase agreement has been prepared by the city attorney and agreed upon by both parties in addition to a license for adjacent property that will be executed at closing and allow for parking on the remaining city property. Fiscal effect, the city will realize $4,125, which payment is based on the cost of an appraisal and per square foot value based on the appraisal report, in addition to a one-time payment of $220 for the license per the adopted fee schedule. Recommendation, adopt the attached resolution of sale and direct the city manager to complete the sale and authorize the execution of the grant of license at the time of property closing. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Campana?
I would like to move that we adopt the attached resolution of sale and direct the city manager to complete the sale and authorize the execution of the grant of license at time of the property closing.
Is there a second? Commissioner Schlegel?
Second the motion.
Commissioner Campana, further comments?
Other than this is a pretty non-controversial issue, and I think everybody would like to see this building sold and fixed up, and right now it doesn't look that great, and it'd be nice, again, to have it remodeled, refurbished, and I would be in favor of this.
Commissioner Schlegel?
I'd echo the sentiment there. Be nice to see this be a functional building within the city of the Marquette once more.
Any other commissioner? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by
We
saying
need a roll
yes.
call, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, this must be a roll call.
Do we have to wait for that?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana.
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier. Commissioner Hill.
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds.
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. That brings us down to new business. First Park Bathhouse renovation and additions. Clerk, if you would read the motion, please, or read the background, please.
Thank you, sir. Background, at the June 13th, 2016 meeting, the City Commission approved UP Engineers and Architects, UPEA, proposal to design, bid, and oversee construction management of 2 unisex pods attached to existing bathhouses in the Tourist Park campground. At the February 13th, 2017 meeting, the City Commission approved a change of scope to include renovating the existing bathhouse facilities and transferring $64,000 from the Tourist Park Fund Reserve. The project was put out to bid in August, and on September 4, 2019, the city received 2 bids. Primo Construction, Marquette, Michigan, $234,409. Glossner Construction, Marquette, Michigan, $222,500. Staff is recommending Glossner Construction be awarded the contract. In addition to their bid, Glossner is recommending a number of changes to the project that staff is reviewing. These changes include a different roofing material, a more durable epoxy floor covering, exterior paint on the existing bathhouses, and replacement of the wall tile. These improvements are value added and will provide the city with a professional quality product. Improvements total $59,983. Additional funding for the project will be taken from the Tourist Park Campground Fund Reserve. The reserve has sufficient funds for the project. Fiscal effect, amend the fiscal year 2019 Tourist Park Campground budget to include a transfer from Fund Reserve totaling $169,933. Recommendation, amend the Tourist Park Campground budget to include a transfer of $169,933 from Fund Reserve and award Glossner Construction of Marquette, Michigan, the construction contract in the amount of $222,500, but not to exceed $282,533, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the contract. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Smith?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the Tourist Park Campground budget to include a transfer of $169,933 from Fund Reserve and award Klausner Construction of Marquette, Michigan, the construction contract in the amount of $222,500, but not to exceed $282,533, and authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign the contract.
Is there a second? Commissioner Campana?
I would second that motion.
Commissioner Smith, further comments?
I've been in this bathhouse complex, and I think it really does need some upgrades. There are sufficient funds and a fund reserve for Tourist Park. I think it's a good use of the funds.
Commissioner Campana?
Unless someone from the city is going to explain this, when I first read this, I had a hard time doing the figures. Sorry, City Manager, but that's why I called you. I look at this and I says, where's that 169,933? How did we get to that figure? Because nowhere in there can you come up with that figure. But I think that it needs to be explained to the people, the residents, how we got to this figure. And again, I'm with Commissioner Smith. I'm totally with this. I think that the campground needs a whole lot of upgrading, and starting with the bathhouses is a very good start. So I'm for this. I'll vote for this. But the bid price of $222,500. The reason it's at that price, that's $110,000 more than we expected. So all of a sudden it cost $110,000 more, and then we added on the $59,000 for more improvements, $59,983. So when you add those two together, that's where you come up with the $169. If anybody cares. I mean, the numbers weren't there, and I don't like it when I can't make the numbers work. So that's how you get at the numbers. It's a good project. I was told, this time of the year to get a decent construction bid is like impossible because all the contractors, they got a lot of work and they just bid high and we're at their mercy. So that's a lot of bathroom for $222,000, but it's got to be. But I'll be in favor of this. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other comments, Commissioners? Commissioner Schlegel.
Thanks for the clarification on that as well. Glad that you brought it up. That's a pretty big dime to miss. And I realize that we're dealing with higher construction costs right now, and I would imagine that's what's going to eat most of that number up. Versus, I'm looking at epoxy floors and things along those lines, which quite honestly, I'm not going to sit here and beat this thing up, but when we're building something, especially like these facilities in our campgrounds, I've been into enough of them throughout the UP, Wisconsin, all over East Coast, out west. They're really, you've got to have all-inclusive ADA compliance, the showers, all that stuff. We know that the most expensive parts of houses are kitchens and bathrooms, right? So that's a pretty big number, and I would hope that in the future that maybe if this is specifically, I'm looking at these other small list of things, exterior paint improvement, different wall tile and things like that, those things would be included. And maybe I'm getting a little bit too picky over something that's not, $100,000, but to me, that's just a big chunk of change hanging out there. So, can we look at this and tell, is that pretty much what we're talking about? Is it the cost of goods?
Yeah, ultimately, the cost of goods have gone up significantly since we endeavored down this road for this grant. Also, there's been a lot of back and forth with the state of Michigan to get to this point, and with the city commission to add the original bathhouses into that. I think we've seen a significant increase in the cost of materials for these. Originally, the project was simply just to add a unisex restroom or bathhouse on each one. So the add-ons of the $59,000, a lot of that comes in the roofing, and so the consultant had spec'd an asphalt shingle, and the contractor brought it to our attention to the the architect's attention that the particular slope that's on that roof is not something where you can warranty an asphalt shingle. So we're talking about a significantly more expensive roofing system than was originally spec'd. And when we go into these projects, we want them to last a long time. So we think those are value added. So.
Makes a lot more sense, thank you.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'm really excited for the park to have a new facility out there. It is in dire need. You know when you get into a park how much the community values it, especially a municipal park, with the facilities. And this is going to be a great complement to our very, very attractive park that we have. So thank you.
Any other comments? Before I call the question, I would just remind all of us, as the public too, that the money that's paying for this is the money the park earned. It's an enterprise fund. It isn't coming from general fund. It's from people that stay there and the theoretical profit of them staying there. So in effect, it's a self-liquidating project. That said, commissioners, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. That brings us to the city attorney evaluation. Clerk, if you will please read the background.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. The city charter requires an annual performance evaluation of the city attorney. In August, the city commission directed the mayor to appoint 3 commissioners to an evaluation subcommittee. The subcommittee consisted of Mayor Stonehouse, Commissioner Schlegel, and Commissioner Smith. The overall evaluation was very positive. The city attorney has successfully met all city charter requirements for his position. No increase in compensation was considered because the attorney is paid on a retainer basis, and the amount of his compensation for legal services is approved as part of the annual budget process. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, approve the city attorney's annual performance evaluation. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we approve the city attorney's annual performance evaluation.
Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Further discussion, Pro Tem?
That this is something we do every year, and I'm always thankful for Ron and his staff. He makes himself readily available. I've asked questions on weekends, and he's returned my phone calls and all sorts of things, and I'm glad that we have him and his staff around for us.
Commissioner Frazier.
Ron does a great job for the city.
Any other commissioner? See, let me add my personal commendation to the great work that our city attorney does. He's always available. He's here. He really is a tremendous asset to this community, to this city, to this commission in particular. So thank you for what you do. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. Clerk, if you will please read item number 9, city manager evaluation.
Thank you, sir. Background. The city charter requires an annual performance evaluation of the city manager. In August, the city commission directed the mayor to appoint 3 commissioners to an evaluation subcommittee. The subcommittee consisted of Mayor Stonehouse, Commissioner Schlegel, and Commissioner Smith. The subcommittee met to review the city manager's performance and compensation. The overall evaluation was very positive. The manager has successfully met all city charter requirements for his position, and the majority of the city commissioners awarded him the highest rating in all other performance categories. Commissioner comments and suggestions have been provided to the city manager for further improvement. Commissioner recommendations, comparable local positions, comparable positions in similarly sized municipalities, and budgetary constraints were all considered in reviewing compensation. The subcommittee found the recommended 2% salary increase was appropriate based upon these considerations. The subcommittee also recommends a $3,000 performance bonus effective October 1, 2019. Fiscal effect, the recommended 2% increase and $3,000 bonus is within the fiscal year 2019-20 budget and will bring the manager's salary to $124,480 per year. Recommendation, approve the evaluation subcommittee's recommendation to increase the city manager's salary from $122,039 to $124,480 per year effective October 1, 2019, and direct the city attorney to amend the manager's contract to reflect the new salary with a performance bonus of $3,000. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Commissioner Schlegel.
I'd make the motion to approve the evaluation subcommittee's recommendation to increase the city manager's salary from $122,039 to $124,480 per year effective October 1st, 2019, and direct the city attorney to amend the manager's contract to reflect the new salary with performance bonus of $3,000.
Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Mr. Schlegel, further comments?
Pretty much say it every month. I'm really impressed with city staff and especially the work that the city manager has done. I appreciate all the effort that you put into it, and I think that Commissioner Reynolds hit on a very important topic there, that you can get a hold of these guys anytime, anywhere, and they'll do their best to get back to you, except for when they're fishing out west in the river. But that's all right. I don't blame you. Yeah, that's what you do. And I just really appreciate the hard work that you put forth for the city of Marquette.
Commissioner Frazier.
Mike Angley is usually available almost all the time, no matter what's going on, answer any questions. Even when he's out of town, he'll YouTube you and just chat with you for some reason, you know. He'll text you from while he's fishing or something like that, so he's always available, great for everybody.
Any other commissioner comments? Hearing none, let me not call a question. Let me just make a comment myself. Mr. Angeli is easily, in my view, in my experience, the best city manager we've had in the last 20 years. I consider him to be exemplary and extraordinary, and the comments about being able to get in touch with him at any hour of the day is absolutely correct, because my little phone can prove the numbers and the times and the calls. He's extraordinarily dedicated to the city and the people in it. He bleeds Marquette, and that's a very important accolade, I think, for anybody that has the position and the job and the leadership that he has to provide daily, every hour of every day. That said, commissioners, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes. Wait, this is a roll call.
That's the next one, sorry. My bad.
Look at
Again.
this, circled in red. Please, clerk.
It's not a roll call, sir.
It's not a roll call.
Not this one.
Nope.
I was
Nope, you're
jumping
right,
onto
you
the
got
next
me
one
there.
there. That's my bad.
Okay, it's a tough world, isn't it? It is truly a tough world. Commissioners, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed by no? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. That brings us to item 10, the resolution for capital improvement plan additional additions for years 2023 and 2026, or through 2026.
And this is a roll call.
This is a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. The City of Marquette on August 8th, 2016, adopted by resolution the Capital Improvement Plan of 2017 to 2022. The Capital Improvement Plan is a guide and form to aid the city manager and the city commission in making decisions regarding the physical development and infrastructure maintenance of the city and determining what, if any, resources can and should be available to carry out the city commission's policies and budgetary decisions. This plan is a flexible document intended to be reevaluated and updated on an annual basis to project into the 6 succeeding years. In addition, the acceptance of this resolution will meet one of the requirements to gain certification as a redevelopment-ready community in the state of Michigan. In accordance with the city charter, this plan has been reviewed by the Planning Commission and is now being presented for your concurrence and approval. Fiscal effect is based on that current year's budget as approved by the City Commission. Recommendation, authorize the city clerk to sign the attached resolution to add to the existing capital improvement plan of 2017 to 22, the years of 2023 to 2026, to meet the requirements of the original plan adoption. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that we authorize the city clerk to sign the attached resolution to add to the existing capital improvement plan of 2017-2022, the years 2023 to 2026, to meet the requirements of the original plan adoption.
Is there a second? Commissioner Campana.
I'd second that motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, further comments?
None.
Mr. Campana, further comments?
Just this is routine and we need to do it, and it's good for the city, good for the planners.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none, all those in favor, but this is a roll call. I was trying to catch you there.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Campana?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yep.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Yes.
Mayor Stonehouse?
Yes. This brings us to public comments. Comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when making public comments.
Yes. James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition, 538 Yelmer Road, Scandia. And thank you for approving for the public hearing. I'd like to remind the public that a public hearing is to allow unfrustrated information to be provided to the commissions to help you with your decision. And I would like to say that please consider doing the recommendation that I made before to have Ron Keefe do the orientation that he does for parliamentary procedure for your boards and committees, the people you appoint up your boards and committees, because it is my understanding that you folks are absolutely not following the way that Ron Keefe explains it during those orientations. Because I have in my movie, I have the lady at the Board of Light and Power, or the Peter White Library. I asked them on the record, and the lady, I said, why don't you take a motion first before you do it? I said, you were taught that in the orientation. The lady just kind of looked at the puzzle, and she went, oh, he did say that, didn't he? Yeah, he did. Why didn't you practice it that way? That's because, you'd rather just meander through the rules and be able to do it as you wish. And I would like to say that, as this brought up to me right now, is the evaluation of both the city manager and the city attorney, is that you now have pending still an ordinance violation complaint that I filed last year. Never got an answer on that. I've contacted the city manager's office many times. I said, hey, where are we at on all that? Never got nothing on that. And I filed that with the city commission on the record, right here from the floor, care of this commission, to the city manager, which is in the charter, is responsible to enforce all the ordinances. And nothing. There's nothing. So it seems like what I never forget when they approved that ordinance was, I believe it was Paul Ryan was very concerned. He was like, man, it's concerned about that. Yeah. And it was Commissioner Nemi that just kind of chuckled and said, well, it's not like there's a board of ethics that anybody can go file a complaint with. So it appears that there's no mechanism for any of these ordinances to be enforced. How does a person get it? Is there a form? Is there a complaint? What happens here? Or, like I was saying, that this board, I believe, and my complaint still rides, is unethical for you members to decide that you're not going to follow the rules and take your personal opinion, and you're now saying that that's the opinion of the city of Marquette. City of Marquette is a sterile entity, non-human entity. Always the answer is you have to follow the rules. It cannot make a decision not to follow the rules. So you're making that decision, and you're putting your opinion and saying, representing that as the opinion of the city. Rules are not for fools, and I would hope that you folks would consider doing that and to the community, making sure the community gets that.
We're following rules here, right? It's time. You had your 3 minutes.
Point of order for who gets the minutes? Who does the minutes?
Mr. Gallen.
Point of order?
The timer calls the minutes.
Oh,
The timer came up red.
There's a rule on that.
Your time is up.
There's a rule on that, and I think
Your
you're
time
not.
is
I
up.
don't think you have the authority to do this.
Your time
I don't
is
think
up.
you have the authority.
Your time is
Under
up.
the rules, the bylaws. I believe you are violating the rules, breaching the rules now.
I'm going to,
Mr. Gallant? Yes, what? I was just asking, I'm asking. Your time is up.
time is up. Discussion is finished. Public comment. Anyone else wishing to comment to public, please? Comment to public. Comment from the public.
Mark Roby, 468 Stone Quarry Drive. I just want to make one more comment about Division Street and all the potholes that you keep pounding in. This is a safety concern because I've observed it myself, and I've also been involved in it. I'm a motorcyclist, obviously. People going up and down Division Street, whether they're heading north or south, they're dodging those potholes, and they're almost creating accidents, trying to avoid each other from smacking into each other. Now, me, as a cyclist, when I'm riding down that street, yes, I try to avoid going out left of Stone Quarry Drive and heading towards Cowles, but sometimes I have to go down that way. And then when I'm riding my bike, you know what I'm doing? I'm slaloming. I'm slaloming down the street, avoiding the potholes. So what happens? I go past Furnace Street. People want to run the stop sign because they don't pay attention to us motorcycles, and I got mine lit up like a Christmas tree. That street needs to be fixed. And I appreciate your fellow. I've stopped and offered my thanks to one of your officers who was running radar down there by where the billboard is, because people are speeding up and down regardless of either coming down from the old 553, they're coming and they're not doing the 25 mile an hour, or they're coming up from Cowles and they're not doing 25 miles an hour, and I can guarantee you that. Now, my last comment is to the Chief of Police. Serve and protect. Observations. Why is it that none of the police in this city, or the Michigan State Police, or the Sheriff's Department, don't set the example to the public, because the public doesn't even follow this law anymore, because it's talking about my age as a senior citizen now that people don't follow anymore. Why is it that you guys don't drive with your headlights on? Why? When we are supposed to be driving with our headlights on. There are signs all over Upper Michigan, drive safely with your lights on. Now, everybody in here knows for a fact that there are people out there, they don't care whether it's inclement weather or what it is. They will drive without their headlights. And I was a witness to it the other day coming home from the Ishermain with that.
Your comments need to be addressed this way, please.
I'm sorry. I was just asking him. Anyway, I'm done. I would like to have that answer done. You know, why isn't there being safety shown to the public by our servants?
Casey Honeyegger, 4490 State Highway M95. I'm here to speak to you as a future applicant for the medical marijuana on the buffering zones. I want to thank you all for what you've done on the buffering zones. I originally started in this industry when I was out in Montana around 2006. Our laws changed out there because people were going and putting dispensaries next to schools, putting them next to churches, putting them next to parks. And the laws ended up changing because we upset the school teachers who have the loudest voices when they come to these city council meetings. So I want to thank you all for putting the buffers in. Any of us who are truly in this industry should really have the respect not to put it near any of these businesses. We should know better. Keep it away from the kids. That's the first rule we have. Otherwise, you upset people, you piss the public off, and then things start going backwards for us. So I agree with the buffer zones. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. Went back to my seat and I realized I had forgotten, my time had run out. There was another comment made during the Planning Commission discussion of the zoning change at Cliffsdow to the effect someone had suggested that there was dioxin on the property, and there was no dioxin on the property. And I'm paraphrasing now, I apologize, I don't have it circled exactly. However, I do have in the documents here a list of the things that were looked for in the most recent sampling, and I cannot find any listing for any of the dioxin-related compounds that I'm aware of. So I would request, with the permission of the commission, I'm going to hand this off to the clerk, because it's rotten to sit up here and quote documents and not have you access to it. But I'm going to request that you ask your engineer to double check if dioxins have been looked for in the same way that other organic materials have been looked for on that site. Because a dioxin is a natural occurring thing that happens in any combustion process. And my research indicated that combustion processes have been taking place on that site for over 65 years. And with all due respect, I didn't know how complicated it was till I started looking. And as a result of the comments I got on Saturday, I'm offering my presentation one more time on Saturday, October 26th at 1 p.m. at the library for anybody to come. I was quite amazed when I went looking for this that no one had done the history of Cliffsdale before, and I'm seriously considering that somebody should put it together in some sort of self-publishing book. So there's just so much to learn, and there's so many records that the state has kept that to go through them is part of what I've done and try to make a coherent story about it. So in conclusion, Saturday, October 26, 2019, 1 p.m., Peter White Public Library, no charge, and no politicking either, just facts about Cliffdale site. And with the commission's permission, I'll hand this off to the clerk so you can see the documents that I'm looking at, because there's just so many. Thank you.
Roxanne Filizetti, 474 Stone Quarry. Thank you for listening to me. I want to support this gentleman right here. I am the president of Stone Quarry Meadows, and I can tell you from all my residents that live as a team, we're a team there, and we all feel the same way about the Division Street. I've been almost hit twice now in this last year for people trying to swerve because of the terrible condition of the road. I'm hopeful that all of you have heard this tonight and that something gets done soon, and not for how many years that we? 5 years we were given when I called the city. This is a safety hazard, and I think that I know how important safety is probably to all of you. And so I hope this is taken care of, and I thank you for listening to us today.
Thank you.
Frank Jeff Verito, these are my opinions. September 9th, Mr. Fraser said a doctor told him marijuana can cause cancer. Kids get hold of candy. I don't see beer brought in the school, end quotes. We agree on all three items, especially the laced candy. His other two remarks are skewed, though. No smoke is good to inhale, and there are likely carcinogens in weed, but how much of any is needed to cause cancer? Is there even a known case of weed causing cancer? July 25, 2011, a DEA agent spoke here, alleging marijuana has 4 times the carcinogens of cigarettes. I'd rather smoke something with 1 million carcinogens that would take smoking an ounce a day to kill than even one lethal carcinogen in cigarettes, proven to have killed many thousands, including my best friend. Mr. Fraser has a point about beer at school because it's hard to conceal, yet almost every other known drug appears in high schools, from hard liquor to heroin, at least the school I attended. September 9th, he said of me, quote, "He loves to comment on our mayor writing notes. He's commented on everything wrong, every commissioner, mayor, manager. We've asked him before, you can run, Frank. He says no, he won't. But all his comments don't apply to what's going on in the city. He loves to comment on everything a commissioner does wrong," end quotes. He fails to digest the fact that I liked 2 of the 4 managers since 1992. Mr. Fraser is incognizant that I've said little against the 3 female members, one of whom doesn't participate much, but I seldom mention this. There was this alleged comment against 2 rowers, so horrible that no one recalls even the gist of what was said or when. Mr. Fraser claims I love to criticize this board when the truth is I hate it. Who is he to remark on what I love when the record shows he cannot absorb my prior responses to his criticism? Can he not discern love from hate? What's evident from my comments is my love for this community that I'm privileged to reside in, the town I chose out of every place else. The trouble is my concerns discredit board members who are more concerned with how they look than for our city as a whole. They believe they are the city when in fact we are the city. It belongs to us all equally, as much ours as any board member or descendant of Peter White. He also mentioned the occasional 4-3 vote, claiming one member can make a difference. 4-3 votes, like we saw last time, are infrequent. Numerous residents have commented on the frequency of unanimous votes, suggesting board members have their minds made up prior to our public opportunities. Why doesn't Mr. Fraser hound them? He also claimed of me that, quote, all his comments don't apply to what's going on in the city. He neglected to give examples. This is true on occasion, but by design. Generally, my comments directly apply to the city and those who run it, especially when I appear animated or accusatory. Those are the records we need to review.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, comments from the commission. Commissioner Campana, would you begin?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think all the commissioners could give this explanation to the gentleman about our streets. Streets are the number one problems that we hear about, and and we agree with you. I drive Division Street. It's terrible. Believe it or not, we don't have enough money. Believe it or not, the city does not. We are not flush with money. If we did, streets would be our number one concern. We do have the city does have a program where they evaluate the streets. They actually take us, who we don't know anything about streets, but we know they're bumpy, but they take us around the city and show us these streets are bad, this one's bad, and they tell why they choose them. There is a method to how they decide to fix these streets. And we just extended the capital improvement plan, and I've seen the plan, and yes, Division's on it. With all the other streets, they're in a pecking order. You hope you get to them. Sometimes they get bumped off for another good reason, but if someone were to drop about $50 million on us, we could fix every street at once, but we just don't have that privilege. So bear with us. It's going to get fixed. I mean, when it's so bad, we will fix them, but we do have an order, a way of doing this, and it's logical. I know it sounds like we're just avoiding it, but no, there's a logical order to street repair, and your street will be fixed. Unfortunately, it'll be, you got to wait 1-2 years, whatever it is. Okay, moving on. I assume that our next meeting, we're going to really have a discussion on our marijuana ordinance, and we look forward to it. The problem there, again, as it was from day one, is the state of Michigan has not come forth with the rules. They're still sitting on their haunches waiting. I don't know why they're waiting. I mean, that's their job, is to come up with rules, but it's been a year and they just haven't done it. And we can't move forward and make rules and then have them come along and negate those rules. So it'd be really nice if they did their job, and we would have everything moving along. And lastly, on a lighter note, I was at Music on 3rd, one Thursday a month. It was a good night. The music was great. There was a ton of people there. And a couple people have said to me, why don't they block the street for 2 hours while it's Music on 3rd? It'd be nice. I would hope that the future commissions are able to do that. I think it'd be a lot safer, because I saw, people are just jaywalking. 3rd Street's the worst street in the city for jaywalking. Everybody jaywalks it. And it's even worse, Music on 3rd. And there's probably a little bit of drinking going on, which doesn't help things. So, Your Honor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had a nice little trip down to Detroit to celebrate their town. It's an MML meeting, so a lot of the community was there. People from all over this. There's people from UP, downstate, all over the place. And really could see what everything was. I haven't been to Detroit for a long time, and they really cleaned it up very nice. Our hotel was near the river. I could throw a can at it was right across the street, and they've really done a nice job. The mayor down there has done a great job. He even said when he took office, there was no public transportation, there was no taxis, the schools were off time, the people couldn't even wait for buses, everything was messed up. He said in 5 years he's changed all that. That's great. And even the people have commented on that. They've great. And then he got into the whole, we had the brownfield stuff, trying to get businesses into Detroit to operate again. And he gave an example, something we never have up here, 300 million in taxes or 200 million in taxes. He decides 200 million in taxes is okay. Something we don't have to deal with. And they're talking about our city, our treasurer would love to hear $1 billion income and $1 billion spent. I'm sure he'd love to hear that. And so different community than us, but he's done a good job, working with the city to clean it up. And they have a great boardwalk all on the river. I've been to the river for so long. people boating up on the river. You could walk. There was a little place to sit, relax. And then people they even had a little cafeteria right by the playground. Very nice area, beautiful area. They've cleaned it up very well. I was very surprised. And going back to recreational stuff, like Commissioner Campana said, it's coming. We all knew it was coming. It was voted for, and I have no problem. People want to do it. That's their issue. Same with alcohol. People want to. I like to have a beer once in a while at dinner or somewhere, but I think we've all been to different breweries. It doesn't. I don't know that much about. You can inform me better if manufacturing marijuana, but I've heard you go by houses that growing and you can tell from outside. I know when I was in school, I left the house one day and came back to roommates all puffing down a good one. You could smell it from across the street. I said, okay, guys, it's in the 90s. I live across the street from campus. You might want to put those out. All those cops were coming knocking on our door. But the thing is, I don't want to. I grew up in a house with smokers. It wasn't fun. A lot of people grow up with smokers and they start smoking. I was the opposite. I grew up with people smoking in my house, and I said, I'm never smoking ever. And that was just cigarettes, which is obviously more bad for you. But as recreational is because if we keep it, recreational and medical, but if it's in the stores, more people will want it, more people will buy it, and they'll try it. And then I just feel sorry for kids. I mean, not that people under 21 can't buy it, just like alcohol and cigarettes and all that stuff, which is great. But yet, people in the house, parents that might not be responsible enough to, smoking down in their kids' room. Not everybody can do it. More people are responsible, but it can happen. And there's, like Mrs. Cater said, there's lots of effects of side effects of the marijuana smoke. That's just something, because the medical stuff is way better, and it's the same plant, but they do it differently. I don't know, explain it, but if you look online, there's all kinds of information about what. And a doctor told me one time, he goes, all the medical community was against allowing marijuana. They all voted against it because they know that, not the medical stuff where they put it in brownies or wherever they do with it, but how it does cause cancer with inhaling any type of smoke. Even people that work in welding or anything that involves smoke, it can cause cancer. Not only pot, but other things. And that's what they said. That's where all the medical community was against it. And I've done research online, and it points to that. And not often, but it can. And then as far as public comment, our city has rules for 3-minute public comments. Everybody is timed. There's a timer right there. The lights flash, and our mayor explains it every time what the time limit is. And perfect opportunity to see. Look at Mr. Verto. He's got it down pat. He reads his 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. He got it right to the end. And he complains if everybody else gets an extra 30 seconds versus him. The reason why we do that is that's part of the rules we try and follow. We try and ask everybody else to follow those rules. And again, Mr. Verto loves to comment about everything. And of course, he left after public comment. But as you notice from his comments, he loved to comment on everything the city manager did, our commissioners did, I did. He didn't say anything about what was going on in the city. He didn't say, okay, the city's doing this, city's doing this. He just said, your commission's doing this wrong, your manager's doing this wrong, I like this person, I don't like this person. So his whole time comment is all about what we as a commission do, what Fred's doing wrong. Fred's trying to run our meetings. He's looking down at his paperwork. He's listening to everything, what he's doing wrong. And Mr. Verto only shows up at public meetings. He doesn't show up at our budget meetings, work sessions, anywhere else. He only shows up to those meetings, that he's on TV. He gets reporters talking to him. He gets in the public eye. That's the only time he's available. Other than that, he's not. But I thank everybody for joining our city and look forward to another. Fall's coming up. I think a little bit. It's a little chilly out there once in a while. So who knows? With our weather these days, it could be. We had 50-degree days and then back to 70s. Who knows? But there's snow out west, so maybe there's snow coming. Mike Angeli, get DPW on standby.
I have one short comment, which is I hope everyone comes down to Marquette Commons and Harlow Park on Saturday at 5 o'clock is the spectacle. which is going to be a parade and music and dance, the whole community coming together. It looks like the rain's going to hold off, according to the forecast, hopefully 5 days out. It will be a great evening. It's usually a lot of fun, and I hope everyone comes down. Put on by the Marquette Arts and Culture Center and lots of terrific creative folks.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few comments tonight. So we had quite a bit of public turnout tonight. Thank you for coming and voicing your concerns. We heard a lot about marijuana in public comment, and I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Mayor Stonehouse said earlier, is that the Michigan voters made it legal. So the comments tonight, I heard, people are going to fall on one side of the issue or the other, but it's already legal in Michigan. 62% of voters in the city of Marquette have voted to approve recreational marijuana. The comments I heard tonight were more just negative about marijuana in general. I didn't necessarily hear something specific that we could use in this ordinance. So if you have those specific comments, feel free to reach out to me after or send us an email. Happy to take those into account. Except for the Women's Center, and I do think that we can look into that and see what we can do there. Second of all, Cliff's Dow, we heard a few comments on that tonight, and we'll be voting on that in the future. The motion by the Planning Commission recently included some language to make sure that we're following all of the rules and regulations set forth by EGLE, which was the DEQ. So I'm confident that as long as we are working with the DEQ, EGLE, and city staff, that we're going to be able to develop on that property in a way that's safe. If we're not able to, we won't do it. That's how I feel about that. And then just a couple other things here. This Saturday, October 5th, there's 2 different events going on I wanted to bring up. It's Fire Prevention Week. There's a parade and static display by the Marquette Fire Department and some of the other local fire departments at Harlow Park, Saturday at 11 a.m. It's a great chance to kind of learn some things about fire prevention, and it's a great activity for kids. And also the Saturday from 2 to 7 on Bergen Avenue is a Harvest Festival, so it's for the food, music. They've got big trucks there for like kids to check out the big trucks, animals to pet, and sidewalk shock art. Commissioner Hale already mentioned the Halloween spectacle on October 12th. I just wanted to also state the next meeting we have is on a Tuesday. It's instead of a Monday. It's a Tuesday, October 15th at 6 p.m. due to a holiday on October 15th. And lastly, last Thursday we held the Lighthouse Park ribbon cutting. I just wanted to thank city staff, the Planning Commission, the Parks and Rec Board, the Maritime Museum Board, contractors, and everyone else who's helped get that park up and running. We've still got some more improvements we want to do, but the bike path especially is great through that area, so go ahead and check it out sometime if you're in that area. And lastly, on Division Street, I did ask the city manager to address that in his comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. I'll do my best to be quick if that's possible for me. 62% to 38%. That was a vote, right? We all know that number. It's a big number. It means a lot. There's 38% people out there that don't want this. We're going to do our best to listen to them, to incorporate their thoughts into what you guys are going to be doing in the future. I think it was very nice, and I compliment you for coming up and talking about the overlays, and that's what I'm going to call them, the buffer zones. And as you lay one category over another, you get tighter and tighter areas for the establishments to be placed. I think that's completely necessary, and I'm very happy to see that we're taking into consideration the extent that we are, and potentially a couple more layers on top of that. So, and that's not, it's not saying that's anything against the pros or the cons. It's just that we owe it to everybody to take both of these sides into complete consideration. Life is about choices, education, policing, parenting. Heard a lot of that tonight in these comments, and that's very, very true. Having a 15-year-old daughter, we talk freely about these topics, and I know what's going on in the schools. I know what's going on the buses. I know what's going on with her friends. Some of her friends are no longer her friends for certain reasons that are very close to this. And, don't think that we don't take this very seriously. It's very, very close to all of our hearts, whether you work in the schools or you live around a school, whatever it is. I had a constituent call me and say, you know, Paul, because I'm not for this stuff. And I said, well, you got to understand that, you know, a large majority is for it. And we have to, you know, we're trying to do our best to take these, all these precautions and input into consideration. And he goes, I want you to ask me, or ask this to yourself and to other people out there that are bucking for this to happen. And I said, what's that? And he goes, how will this make Marquette better? And I sat for a minute and I thought, well, don't give me a hard question like that. Give me an easy one like, hey, aren't we going to make some money off of this? Or, you know, something along those lines. How is this going to make Marquette better? Are we being progressive? Are we being leaders in this whole pot thing? What's going on? How is this going to make Marquette a better place to live and raise our children and our families for the future? Really, it's been keeping me up with that question where I'll wake up and I'll ask myself in the middle of the night, how is this really going to make us better? With that being said, I go back to these things. This is what we're doing to make things better. It's not a perfect world that we live in, and we gotta look out for each other. So, this is what's going on in my mind. And thanks for indulging me. That's all.
Okay. I'm kind of ill this evening, so I'm not going to make too many comments. And I won't be around next time that we do a budget season. And I apologize to you, Mark. I didn't catch your last name, but I think the time that it would be the best for like your neighborhood and time that you were looking to get your road moved up would be when we actually sit down and do our budgets. And that's when we determine what roads we're going to do. Granted, we do have a pre-established list, but we've seen those things move around from time to time in my 6 years. So I think that would be the time best for your group to come forward. Other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you. Well, let me ramble on a couple of things here. I drive Division Street 3-4 times a day. I just live up around the corner on Oriana, and I know every bloody pothole in that street, and it is painful. I would love to see it come up in the priority list, but I also know that I'm not going to, being here as a mayor and being on the commission, I have to be obviously extraordinarily careful that you're not doing something that could be perceived to be for yourself. Oh, no. And, you know, for that reason, sometimes I think you lay back on it a little bit. But that is an extraordinarily bad street that I think we need to have to take a good hard look at. Well understood. I can't take conversation now. I can only do one way, I'm afraid. Cliffs Dow property, you know, we're hand in glove with the DEQ. We're hand in glove with the environmental experts, and if DEQ says that this is good to go, then I'm comfortable that it's good to go based on whatever stipulations they may place on that property. So we'll see how it plays out. Concerning marijuana, I don't think the city has ever gone into this with the idea that we're going to make money on it. The money isn't there. We'll make a little bit, certainly because there's some fees involved with the businesses, but in terms of getting a percentage like you would if you were collecting sales tax or something like that, it's really not there. And if you look at what the state mandates that goes to the state from sales, it's a long, long time before any of that comes back to the city in any appreciable amount. Comments been made about following the rules. That's exactly why we have a city attorney here every meeting. Every time this commission gathers is to have the city attorney present to make absolutely dead certain that we are doing things the right way and the legal way. And if we have to have a discussion in the middle of a meeting to say we're doing this right, we're doing this wrong, that's what he's here for. And that's what every member of this commission is sworn when they're sworn in as an elected official to follow the rules of the city of Marquette, the city charter, et cetera, and that's what we do. I will point out to people that we are under no obligation to follow Robert's Rules of Order, for example. That is not part of our city charter. That is not part of the rules that this commission follows. We will generally follow them because it's a way of conducting a good meeting, but we're not under any stipulation to do each and every item. And we may, in fact, by motion of the commission, suspend rules of our own rules as we go through to discuss given topics. But all of that done in a public forum, so everybody understands it. There's not secret meetings, there's none of that. That's the kind of thing that goes on. Women's Center, I surely hope that we'll be able to get something resolved with that. Can't say what it'll be, don't know, but you know, we have to make sure that we can protect the vulnerable in the city, and that's certainly part of that, I think. That said, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to announce, if you haven't noticed, we've got our new camera system running tonight. Several months ago, the commission approved a very expensive upgrade. And by all indications, I think it's working well. Max, I think, is in there running it, and I think Max has done a good job. I can tell you that they spent the better part of the last week and a half trying to figure out how it all works. So we've got new cameras, if you've noticed. The pictures are a lot clearer, and hopefully we won't have the issues that we've had in the past with the camera system. All in an effort to stay transparent and to broadcast regularly from these commission chambers. It's a little early, but I'd like to remind everybody that before the next meeting on the 15th, I will have community office hours at Peter White Public Library on Wednesday the 9th, 10 o'clock a.m., if anybody wishes to visit. I can comment a little bit more on the capital improvement plan, the infrastructure. Basically, everybody here has made very accurate comments about how we handle that. The staff here puts together a very comprehensive capital improvement plan. And the one thing that people tend to forget about when we talk about potholes and fixing the roads is that we put plans together that also include fixing the infrastructure, which means the sewer, the water, and the storm water. So that also goes into the rating as to when the project gets funded. Even though the road might be in terrible shape, the infrastructure may be worthy of staying together for another year or two, where other areas of the community where the road may seem better, but the infrastructure is just crap. I mean, we still have wooden pipes in some area of this community that really rise to the top of how we do things. So, and as to mimic the mayor, we try to stay very objective. I too ride on Division Street just about every day, but I'm on a bicycle, so that jars other things loose on me. And I agree, but you know, we rate everything's fairly, and we try to get to the streets that deserve it more. I guess I don't know if it's worth commenting, but just to remind people that when people make comments about how Marquette is changing, the whole emphasis, there's two things that I see happening. One is that the new hospital is put us in a different position as far as economic development. I mean, things are happening, things are growing, things are changing, all because of where that hospital moved and the kind of hospital that it is. The other thing is that, and I've mentioned this 100 times, so I'm sorry, but we needed to come up with a means of replacing the lost revenue from the WE energy plant at Presque Isle. The plan that people see, the redevelopment of city property, Cliffs Dow, Heartwood, Founders, is all meant to generate tax dollars. Not new tax, it's new tax dollars, but it's replacing the stuff we're losing with the WE plant. And it's all on a plan. It's all been developed into a plan. You know, well, depending on how you look at it, fortunate or unfortunate, I mean, the only way this community can grow and the only way that the city commission can raise tax dollars is through new development. And that new development has to be, I think, in the area of housing, homes, condos, whatever. I'm pretty sure this community would not stand for manufacturing, probably would not stand for anything real industrial. I mean, because those things are out there too as a tax base. But the way I read the community, I think the way this commission reads the community is that they don't want that here. So we're going with the next best possible route, that is getting these properties off of our ownership list, out into the tax rolls and paying taxes. The other option, which people I'm sure don't want to hear, is that if we can't develop these properties and raise that revenue, we have to raise your taxes. And just a friendly reminder, I guess, that 50% of this community is non-taxable. So that means that property taxes all rest on the homeowner, in my opinion, and if you want us to raise taxes to the homeowner, that's probably not the best way to go. We want to widen that tax base, not continue that burden on the homeowner. Last thing I want to say is thank you for your continued support in my evaluation. You're very correct, Mr. Mayor, that 43 years ago, when I was a 21-year-old person, I walked into this building and it's been my life. And I do eat, sleep, and breathe in this community. It's my home, and I share those sentiments. So thank you very much.
We adjourned.
Mark, thank you for coming.